So we're looking forward to meeting you and your family as soon as you get to the city. Yours very truly, Robert E. Goodrich, Jr., pastor. Now, is there anything else?
Yes, this letter from Dr. Dr. Goodrich's office? Yes, just a moment, please. It's for you.
Hello?
Dr. Goodrich, this is Bill Morton in the sheriff's office.
Did you say sheriff's office?
Yes, sir. It's about Mike Bennington. You remember that fellow that got a life sentence last week? Do you know him?
Mike Bennington. Yes, I've met him. I saw him some time ago.
I know this sounds funny, but he says he wants to talk to you. He's been pestering me all day to call you. Now, if you don't want to see him, I'll just tell him.
No, I'll be glad to see him. Are you holding him in the county jail?
Yes, sir, for the time being.
I'll come by there in a little while.
All right, just ask for Deputy Morton, and I'll take you right up.
I appreciate you coming here like this, Dr. Goodrich. I had to talk to someone. Maybe you think it's funny I didn't send for one of my boys to come and sit with me, one of my old pals.
I'm glad to come, Mr. Bennington. But I imagine some of your old friends would probably like to visit you, too.
Friends? I got no friends. I'm alone, and I know it. That gang of mine is a lousy pack of hyenas, tearing each other apart for what little I got left. It's real funny, Dr. Goodrich. You're the one guy that crossed me when I was on top. Now that the show's over, you're the one guy I want to talk to.
Well, is there anything special you wanted to talk about, Mr. Bennington?
No, nothing special. Hey, call me Mike. Everybody's doing it.
All right, Mike.
It used to be Mr. Bennington, though. Remember Dr. Goodrich? The guy that held half the rackets from here to Chicago, right in the palm of his hand. And look at me now. I'll be sitting in some crummy jail for the rest of my natural life. What a lousy ending for the great Mr. Bennington.
Just how great was Mr. Bennington?
Why, you remember. I controlled the rackets. I was the big boy. You came to my offices, didn't you? Don't you remember all the secretaries and telephones? Don't you remember how tough it was to even get beyond the front hall?
No, I'm afraid he's busy now. Maybe later. Excuse me, sir. Yes, Mr. Adams. No, Mr. Bennington can't see you this week. Or maybe next week. That's right, sir, maybe. Yes, sir, can I help you?
I'm Dr. Goodrich, pastor of the church. Mr. Bennington asked me to come by.
Just a moment, sir, I'll check. Doris, there's a Dr. Goodrich here. Does Mr. Bennington want to see him? Well, check for me, honey. Just a moment. He does? All right, I'll send him back. He'll see you. Take this door, go down the hall. It's the third door on the left. Miss Evans will show you where to go.
Okay, come in.
Mr. Bennington, I'm Dr. Goodrich.
Yeah, I wanted to see you. Try that on for size. And what can I mix up for you? Oh, I forgot you don't...
You wanted to see me.
Yeah, sit down. I got a plan.
Frankly, Mr. Bennington, some of your plans are the kind the church couldn't cooperate with.
This is different. Legitimate. This is charity. I've got some land, and I'm going to give it to your church.
Why?
Why? Because I'm charitable. I got a big heart. I want to see your church get a break.
Look, Mr. Bennington, you don't care about the church. What's the reason for all this?
Okay. I'll level with you. You see, I make a lot of money, but the government takes most of it away from me. You know, income tax. Well, my attorney tells me that I can save a lot of money if I give some land to a charity. Then I can charge it off on my income tax. Well, your church is a charity, ain't it? The only thing is, you'll have to agree that the land is worth maybe a little bit more than it actually is.
We could never agree to a thing like that.
Why not? It's fair for both of us. You get the land, I get the big charge-off on the income tax. It's just fair for both of us.
Mr. Bannington, the church doesn't make deals to steal from the government.
Who's stealing? You get the land. Nobody's putting a gun to anyone. Who's stealing?
Anyone steals who takes or keeps something that doesn't belong to them. You want a bigger charge-off on your income tax than you're entitled to have. You want to hold out on the government, which is the same as stealing from the government.
Okay, forget it. Forget it. I'll take my charities elsewhere. There's lots of other churches, you know.
Yes, and I know that every one of them will have exactly the same reaction I have to this fraudulent scheme you're suggesting.
Fraudulent? I'm doing a charity, and you come here calling it fraudulent. You've got a lot of nerve talking like that.
I'm leaving now.
Wait a minute. You said I was stealing. Well, maybe I am. If I steal, it's because the suckers begged me to take it away from them. And if I didn't steal it first, some other mug would. Listen, you preacher. It's you and your church people, the ones who are too goody-goody to steal. They're the real suckers. When I need money, I take it. All right, steal it, if that's what you want to call it. But I can steal more in 1 month than you and your church can dig up in a year. Remember that, you preacher.
Yeah, I remember the office, Mike. You had a mighty lavish setup. To some people, you were a pretty important person. You'd built up quite an operation. You were the big man in your own little empire.
Yeah. That's what I had. An empire. Kind of fell apart all at once, though. Why was that, Dr. Goodrich?
It wasn't put together right, Mike. It was bound to fall apart sooner or later. You know, all this talk about morals and ethics that are a part of our Christian faith, they're not just someone's dreamy conception of what's right and wrong. Take the Bible. It's got a lot of do's and don'ts in it. And sometimes they may seem sort of arbitrary, but they're not, Mike. Those laws don't hold us back. They show us how we can go forward, how we can build upon a sure foundation. They're for our sake, Mike. They protect us from all kinds of trouble.
Which adds up to the fact that I shouldn't have broke the law.
There's an old saying, Mike. Man doesn't break the law. He only breaks himself upon the law.
He only breaks himself upon the law. Yeah, guess that's what I done. And I thought I was so smart I could always get by.
So do a lot of other persons. In fact, I suspect there are lots of persons breaking the law at this very moment. And if they're doing it willfully, they probably imagine that somehow they are an exception. That somehow they'll get by.
Oh, time to go already?
Yes.
Goodbye, Dr. Goodrich, and thanks again for coming by.
Goodbye, Mike. Thank you, Sergeant.
Hey, Dr. Goodrich, about those other folks breaking the law, you ought to preach to them in a sermon. Tell them about me, Dr. Goodrich. Tell them that if Mike Bannington can't break the law without it breaking him, no one can.
I think I will preach a sermon about Mike Bannington someday. I'll preach a sermon that says God's laws will not be broken. So many persons do try to break those laws only to end up having broken their own lives and the lives of those dearest to them. There are Mike Banningtons everywhere. Persons who imagine that they can ignore the commandments and write their own moral code. There are men who laugh at all laws and say that the only commandment is, thou shalt not get caught. Too bad they have to learn the hard way that we do live in a disciplined universe, which has fitting compensations for both right and wrong. One of the services of the church is to keep us aware of that fact and to help us to realize how necessary God's laws are to our very existence and our happiness, and to show us how that by following them, we can build upon a foundation that is sure. God's laws are not arbitrary. They're not mere words projected from some faraway ivory tower. They're a basic code of morals and ethics that will be as true 1,000 years from today as they were thousands of years ago when first formulated. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not steal. These are simple laws. We can all understand them. And yet embodied in these simple statements are some of the fundamental truths of all the ages. The church is open to all those who would learn more of God's laws and God's ways. It's open to all who want a principle within. As the hymn puts it, a principle within of watchful godly care, a sensibility to sin, a pain to feel it near.
I want a principle within of watchful godly fear, a sensibility of sin, a pain to feel it near. Have me the first approach to feel a pride or own desire, to catch the wandering of my will and quench the kindling fire. Almighty God of truth and love, to me thy power impart. The burden from my soul remove, the hardness from my heart. Oh, may the least omission pain my reawakened soul, and drive me to that grace again which makes the wounded whole.
Jesus concluded one of his most popular parables with these words, "And every one that heareth these sayings of mine and doeth them not shall be likened unto a foolish man which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell. And great was the fall of it."